Okay, simplify each of the following, right? 8 to the power 2/3. Okay, now when we've got fractional powers, right? Remember, okay, it's not easy to deal with when you've got the number 2 on the top here, okay? It's much easier if it was 1/3, okay? So what we can actually do is rewrite this, okay? Instead of saying 2/3, we can write it as 1/3, okay? But then the fact that it's 2, we can take out the 2 and create a bracket like that. So ultimately, I haven't changed it because when you've got this power here raised to another power, you would multiply them. And 1/3 times 2 is 2/3. So that really is represented correctly here, okay? So 8 to the power 1/3, and the 2 has sort of gone outside of that bracket, and you've got a power raised to a power. Now you've got that situation is much easier to deal with. Inside that bracket, you've got power 1/3, okay? Now, the power 1/3 actually is the same as the cube root, okay? So instead of writing 8 to the power 1/3, I could write it as the cube root of 8, okay? Think of this as like the opposite of cubing, yeah? Because when we cube, the power is 3, okay? But if the power is 1/3, it's the opposite of cubing, which is cube rooting, okay? So remember, you write the square root symbol and then put a little 3 in front. Okay, and then don't forget then we've got that power 2 outside. Now the cube root of 8 is quite easy actually. It comes to 2, doesn't it? Okay, so we've got 2 in that bracket now. Because if you think about it, 2 times 2 times 2 gives me 8. So the cube root of 8 is 2. And then that power 2 outside, okay, is simply telling us to square it. And when we square it, of course, we just want to times by itself, don't we? Yeah, and 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, so there's my final answer. With the second part, all right, we've now got a fraction again as a power, but it's a negative fraction, all right? And when we've seen this before, when we've got negative powers, we can do the sort of reciprocal of it, right? And what I mean by that is, we can write 25 to the power minus a half as 1 divided by 25 to the power half, okay? So you write it as 1 over, you're flipping it, all right? But when you flip it, then the power changes its sign. So it goes from negative to positive. And what's great then is, right, when you've got power half, well, the power half is simply the square root, okay? Right, similar reasoning to before when we had power third. Power third is the cube root. Power half is the square root. Power half is the opposite of squaring. Okay, so we actually square rooting. So what is the square root of 25? Well, that's easy, isn't it? It's just 5, isn't it? Because 5 times 5 is 25. And there's my answer, 1 over 5.